Hey everybody, this is David Kleinschmidt with Understanding Ag. I'm down here in Sterling, Kansas with Austin Schweizer. Austin is a farmer down here. It's part of the General Mills project that we're working on down here in South Central Kansas with some Kansas wheat producers, trying to help them to implement more soil health practices and using cover crops, no-till, and basically trying to cover all the principles of soil health. So Austin, let me ask you something. What got you started in cover crops?
Oh, I don't know. Kind of started with covers. My dad we were growing no-till on sand, trying to deal with issues of moisture savings. And then talked with Jim Ball. He came and talked to our class at HCC and didn't really understand what he was talking about, but there was a lot of soil principles there. And then went to a few different soil conferences, and while I was at Fort Hays, and kind of started the ball rolling. And me and my brother-in-law have been going to quite a few of those together. And over time, we saw what we were seeing in our no-till on the sand wasn't just moisture savings. We were growing, biology and soil principles. So we started the ball rolling, and we've come a long ways.
Thank you. So what are some of the goals that you're after when using cover crops on your farm?
Well, I want to have a healthy soil. I want to have I want it to be stable. I don't want to have to worry about the wind or the water or erosion or anything like that. Here in Kansas, it's mostly wind. We get dry, and we have times where we don't catch a rain for a while. But when we do catch rain, it's usually a thunderstorm. So when I get one of those to come through, I want to take the water in. I don't want it to run off. So I want infiltration. I want soil structure, so when I have those hard rains, we don't break down. I want to be able to cycle nutrients with the microbes and keep that stabilized with the cover. And I want resilient soil. I want to be able to go through a drought. When we catch a rain, we come out of it like it never happened. And I want my crops to show that.
And you also have livestock as well, right?
Yes, our farm, we have livestock, we have cows.
And you've been grazing some calves on cereal rye and cover crops, even some warm seasons as well, right?
Yeah, we've done some grazing. We've got a lot more. We want to look into that. We've always grazed milestocks, and we've always grazed some wheat and some rye, but we want to we grazed some stockpile covers this winter. Had pretty good luck with that. We want to keep moving into that and seeing what we find.
Perfect. Listen to the birds back here.
I know. I started drilling the milo and quail and a couple pheasants and just all sorts of birds out here. It's awesome.
Yes. So we're out here in one of your study fields. This project, we've identified a field typically with you that is either pretty uniform to your farming practices, or maybe even one that's been a challenge as well. And so, Austin, you picked this field to put this into, a project here to, I guess, really test the principles.
Yeah. If you go like 3 miles west of here, it gets pretty sandy, and that's the rest of my farm ground is sandy ground. And the cover crops and the root structure and everything we just talked about, that's a no-brainer on the sandy ground. Well, this is heavier, and I was having trouble with it. David knows all about it. I'll probably burn his ears off I don't know how many times. But I put this one in the study field thing because it needed help. I mean, we needed to find a plan. We needed to prove that these principles could work. So that's been David and I's goal with this deal.
So last year when I came out here to do some Haney soil health test, this field was so hard that I couldn't get a soil probe into the ground. So I was taking spade samples of soil to send off to the lab, but I had a hard time even getting a spade in the ground. I was literally driving a spade into the ground with a mini sledgehammer to get any type of soil. So, Austin, how much have we changed?
We've changed quite a bit.
And what have we done? What was planted here last year? What was the crop?
We had wheat layer last year, and the background on the field, I took it over 3 or 4 years ago, and it had been no-tilled well before that. I mean, it was no-till. It had some residue on it, but no cover crops or nothing. Started last year. We had wheat that was following beans, and it was just hard. I mean, every time we get a rain, we get pooling and ponding, and it didn't work. So we cut the wheat off. David and I worked together and we got a 13-way cover crop blend on here. And we got dry last summer. Once July, we got rain in July and then it stopped. And the millets and sedans kind of burn up. So first week of September, I ran 1 shot of glyphosate over the top. And David and I worked together again, and we wanted annual ryegrass to try to break the hard pan. So we put together annual ryegrass, cereal rye, hairy vetch, and some peas. And we seeded it in. We had a chance of rain. We had a nice chance of rain, seeded it in, and the drought continued. We missed it. So none of this green that's out here came up for 60 days. The seed laid in the ground. And then November, we got some moisture. We didn't get a lot, but we got some. We got it sprouted, and it looked pathetic all winter. And we went to that polar vortex, and I told David when he came out, I said, we don't even know where to look. We got down to -15. It's dead. And peas and vetch lived through the cover. So then it exploded. This spring, the rye started to head early, just like everybody else. The covers kind of struggled. And so we ran a shot of Select on it. And then knocked most of the rye out, not all of it. And then the peas and vetch took off. And I have been just amazed at what it did. So we've come a long ways, and not because of big successes. We've had some struggles with this field, these covers, and the soil health is still improving.
Absolutely. You know, right where we're standing here, Austin, I noticed that we've got a massive amount of armor on this soil. And, you know, this is just incredible, the amount of resilience this soil has actually built. So when we put a spade in the ground now, it is incredibly easy to put a spade in and just to look at this soil. You know, we've got some really good aggregation building near that soil surface. And look at all this at the surface. You know, we've got a bunch of worm castings coming. Worms are coming up here. And Austin, I know you've mentioned to me several times that, you know, you could come out here and dig back in the residue, especially when it's cooler. You know, we're in the 90s today, but typically we could come out here, dig back on the residue and find worms right at the surface, you know, not even buried into the ground.
Yep.
Oh, look right here. You got an earthworm sack, little egg of worms. So, you know, we've got worm activity going on through this profile, but it's how much more moisture is here. Yeah, it's dried out a little bit up towards the top. That's like perfect planting conditions right now. How much rain did you get recently?
We had 1.80 inch last week, and then we were pretty much dry through May. So we caught a little in May, but not a lot. So we were up a week and a half ago. I thought David and I had messed up. We caught the 1.80 inch, and now the conditions are great. The green cover, we've sprayed it, and I like where we're at.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're planting into all this moisture. You know, we should have some pretty good growing conditions for some milo. Check out that wormhole right through. I mean, yeah, it's just awesome to watch the roots that come right up through those wormholes there. You know, we've got good aggregation building. You know, the soil, it's even, you know, it's starting to get an earthy smell to it for sure.
It's not as anaerobic as it was.
Absolutely. So we're infiltrating a lot of water. We're saving a lot more moisture, you know, which is huge out in Kansas. Like you said, it gets dry out here. And there's no pivot here. There's no circle.
The last week of August, this last year, I hooked on a no-till ripper, and I was going to break the hard pan. When we got here, the only spot I could rip was the low area over here, and there's a pond farther over where the tractor's sitting. I was able to rip through the bottom of those, but the cover crop had it so dried out, the ripper wouldn't go in the ground. So we parked it. So that changed quite a bit with the ripper.
We didn't need steel. We didn't need no iron.
We did.
Absolutely. It's so much about this, you know, the residue management of what most people would say. You know, what are you going to do with all that biomass? Well, for me, I'm going to put it on the ground. That's where my microbes are. So let's protect the microbes in that soil, right? Absolutely.
When we pulled that soil probe, was that a month ago?
Yeah, it's 30 days ago.
We found there was leaves from the old cover that were stuck down in the ground because the worm had pulled it down in there too.
Yeah.
That was amazing to me. You know, the strict no-till, we find worms, but there's not a lot of them. They're not terribly active. But when we've been growing the covers, you know, when we were putting the probe in over the shovel full.
Absolutely.
So,
You know,
pretty exciting stuff.
30 days ago when I came out here to pull this soil probe back, there wasn't much peas, there wasn't much veg. I said, be patient, it'll come.
Yeah, I called David and I said, yeah, I'm going to pull in, we're going to smoke everything, put down some Valor, and I'll just plant Milo in a month. And he talked me off the cliff, I guess. And so we ran the show. We had to take care of some rye. I'm pretty happy with what we did.
Absolutely. But I remember when I came out here to pull that soil probe, he said, David, I don't think that thing is working right. I don't think it's recording right. He said, it's showing that we've got all this moisture in the profile and we haven't had any rain. There's no way there's that much moisture in there. When we pulled up that probe,
It was only dry at the top 2 inches.
yeah,
He pulled on it, it flicked up out of the ground, and it was solid, slick good all the way to the bottom.
absolutely. So it proved that we were taking every rain event that we had throughout the winter and spring months, and we infiltrated into that soil. It's just now building that aggregation down through there, building the root structure so we can get down into that soil moisture. It's deeper into that profile. So
We had the inch 80 in, and I'm drilling here now. I talked to David, and I'm hoping we'll drill the field corner to corner. And there's 2 little wet pockets I think I can get across, but we infiltrated an inch 80 pretty well.
absolutely.
Pretty well.
You know, we noticed several things when we pulled the Haney soil health test this year. You know, the CO2 respiration rates have increased. And I'm sure if we came out here now and pulled it, they'd be even higher. You know, it would be, what, 60 days, almost 90 days since we pulled those samples. So I'm sure as the soil temperatures have warmed up, as more of this crop has decayed out, mineralized out, we've influenced that microbial activity in that soil profile. So I bet that CO2 respiration rate would actually be higher than what we've seen it then. But we did do some really interesting things. You know, the Haney test has actually given us about 40 pounds of nitrogen credit. And if I remember right, the previous year was only like 15.
It was low.
It was really low.
We were basically farming brick.
Yeah. And so by having actually the carbon, you know, component of the cover crop plus the legumes out there and everything, we're able to spur that biology and get a lot of those microbes to start recycling some of this nitrogen back in through our soil system. You know, our another thing we noticed was the potassium levels. Those levels went sky high. You know, everybody talks about, well, if you put in a cover crop, you're removing nutrients. Well, if you never take the cover crop off the farm, you're not really removing any nutrients. You're just pulling them up from deeper into that soil, from that soil profile, and bringing them up to the surface and cycling them back.
Well, that's what we pulled other Haney tests on the farm before we were grazing those stockpile warm seasons. And when you look at that compared to milo stocks next, across the field border, big difference. You know, we mineralized a lot of nutrition and we stabilized the soil. But when you pull the Haney and you look at some of those numbers, like, man, we need to adjust what we're doing.
Absolutely. And one of the things we noticed with this field is we've got a nice stand of vetch and peas, and some cereal rice still remaining growing. And so we took a biomass sample. Austin, you did that last week, was it, and sent it off, and we haven't got the results back. We're really interested in seeing how much nutrients are in this cover crop biomass that we can start taking some credit for, and we'll take some samples 30 days later after termination here just to see what's been mineralized back out of that cover crop. And we'll probably even take some tissue samples of some milo to see, what that plant's telling us as well. So, just wanted to show real quick here before I end this. This here has not been planted, and he's drilled right here. And you can see how that drill, Austin, what drill are you running?
We're running a John Deere, 20-foot John Deere 1560.
Okay, a 20-foot John Deere 1560. And it is just taking this cover crop down to the ground.
We have the skinny gauge wheels on too. So, I mean, it's doing a pretty good job for what we've got on it.
Absolutely. And so right over there where that red truck is, right behind there, we're installing the soil moisture probes again. We're going to monitor, you know, the amount of soil moisture that we can infiltrate into this field. We're going to monitor how much, where our root growth depth is. The probe has sensors every 2 inches, goes down into the ground 48 inches. We'll also be able to measure the temperature of the soil and also the electrical conductivity. So we'll be able to measure, you know, if Austin applies any fertilizer to this field, we'll be able to measure where the salts are and where basically where the fertilizer is at. So folks, I appreciate it. Thanks for joining. Until next time, have a blessed day.